Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. We're here for Chemist Warehouse. Head into Chemist Warehouse for great savings every day. Roosters v Seagulls. Can the Roosters stay in the NRL? That is the question heading into this round. Will they still be in the NRL in 2024? That is what the pundits are asking. Versus the Seagulls.
Tommy.
7:50 at the SCG. Sua Wong replaces the concussed Egan Butcher. So Wong will be in the side for Egan Butcher. Drew Hutchinson joins the bench for Jake Turpin. I thought Jake Turpin very unlucky to be dropped. Only got 7 minutes, I think, last week. Seagulls team news. Raymond Vanga replaces Tui Pelotu on the wing, and Travojevic, that is the bend Travojevic, joins the bench. Smithy, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I think, I said earlier, mate, the Roosters, there's something going on there. I can't really put my finger on it, but the games I have seen live, I'll comment on the games I have seen live. I've seen a few. I've worked on a few of their games live this year. They seem, just lacking energy in all facets of the game, Kempy. All facets of the game. I watched them earlier in the season against Penrith. They look like they didn't really want to be there. They look confused at times. Watching again last Thursday night against the Broncos, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Like, they played the game physically. Okay, so they were up for the contest physically. They took it to Payne Haas. They took it to Carrigan. They took it all the big blokes and they roughed them up a little bit. But outside of that, they really had no answers. Like, absolutely no answers for the Broncos. They tried some set plays. They tried, trying to go through their middle, and they just kept running into dead ends. Dead ends. So I don't know whether it's, just an overall sort of issue that they're having there at the moment that, they're just, for some reason, all not on the same page with their footy, whether they're down on energy. You got to remember, like, this is a club they've been up for a long time.
Yeah.
They've been up for a long time. They won back-to-back premierships in 18 and 19. They've lost a couple of key individuals, and not just key individuals in the footy side, like some really important organisational players in their footy side as well, who've got a lot of experience and all that sort of stuff that can help guide teams through tough periods and tough games. So they've had a fair bit go on. But when you look at their lineup on paper, they're a much better footy side than what they're showing at the moment. So, I don't know if I can see them turning their form around that quickly in the space of a week. I'm going to go with the Sea Eagles on this one.
Yeah, I think the Sea Eagles are more desperate. They've got more to play for. They can still make the 8. The Roosters, I think they just need a complete reset. I think that, I've spoken about it before, but ever since the rule changes, they haven't really adapted to the game as well as I think they would have hoped. I think they recruited very strongly in favour of the 2021 rule changes, and it just hasn't seemed to work and click. I think Trent Robinson just needs a complete reset. I'd almost like say give him a bit of a longer break in the off-season, as in all the players, everyone. I know that sounds like maybe you're being a bit too soft or whatever, but I agree with you, mate. I think that they just look like a team that were up for so long that they're just lacking a bit of energy. Like, for example, they came out against the Broncos and they were so much energy that it was so impressive.
Yep.
But then when the game needed to go to another gear, they just didn't, unfortunately, have it in them.
Yeah, they didn't have it, did they?
And I think that they just look like a team that maybe needs a refresher in the way they do things, because better than anyone at this. Like, I'm sure at the Storm, every certain amount of years you tried to refresh things. I know with the Broncos in 2005 going into 2006, Wayne Bennett completely refreshed the way we trained, our head performance, everything changed. And it was just to jog everyone into feel like they're coming into something new. Is that something that you guys tried to do at the Storm?
Yeah, I think, Craig did his best without, sort of going away from the basics that he felt was important, to build your game around and to build a good season. I think he tried to do things different ways and keep it a little bit fresh. Particularly for the older players that need a bit of a, when you're doing something over and over and over years and years and years, it does get a little bit monotonous. But they just need to play better. They're a better side than what they're showing at the moment. And I do, going back to the Jake Turpin being left out of this match, like, he only got a few minutes at the end of the game. I'd actually start him.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd start him at 9 and either put Brandon Smith in the middle as a ruck player or bring him off the bench, because he actually had a couple of good touches the other night, Brandon Smith, with the football, and he caused a few sort of little issues for the Broncos defensive line when he had a couple of like good runs. I don't know. I just think he's lost a bit of his impact, Brandon, starting as a starting 9. I just think that if they can find a better way to use Brandon, a more effective way to use him, I think they can get a lot more positive stuff out of him and off the back of him. I think Kiri, whoever's going to be playing 7 for them long term, and Tedesco, they can find a bit more momentum and some positive stuff off the back of Brandon Smith if he's used in a different way. Because I just think chucking him out there at the start and making him play 65, 70 minutes, whatever he did the other night, I just think that you just don't get as much impact out of him.
No, I agree, mate. I think that Brandon Smith is the best momentum changer in the comp, in my opinion. Quick play the balls. You go back to when you guys won the comp, he was so vital. Whenever you're in a crunch and there was a bit of pressure and they were turning the screws, boom, he would just completely open it up. But we'll head to the next game. I can't wait to see how the Seagulls respond to their. Obviously, they got the win last week against the Dragons.
Yep.
I'm not convinced yet with the Seagulls, but you've got to give them credit. Geez, they've hung in there somehow, some way to at least stay in the fight.
And they're right on the edge, mate. They're right on the edge of finals. Like if the only thing that's going to hurt them is their poor for and against. Like their points differential's -25. Although Canberra, like this is amazing. Canberra's 5th and they got a points differential of -78. How does that happen? I just don't know.
Wow.
But if they have a win on the weekend, Manly, and let's just say, any one of South, Cronulla, or the Cowboys lose, they're in the 8.
Yeah,
they're in the 8, and they just got to back it off of like they had plenty to play for the other week. Like every team has plenty to play for every week, but their skipper played 300 last week, Cherry Evans, so it was a big occasion for him.
Now, Titans versus Warriors. How do you see this one panning out, Smithy?
Well, the Warriors, they had a week off, so they're going to be fresh. Titans very brave across the weekend. We mentioned their performance against the Cowboys and an upset of some sorts. But I think the Warriors are cruising at the moment. They're so confident. They're very happy. The positive for Titans is they get to play at home again, and there'll be a big crowd here, I reckon. They're playing Friday, 6 o'clock. I reckon there'll be a huge crowd. It was funny last week at Seabus. There was more people supporting the Cowboys than there was Titans. It was weird. Mate, it was weird. So the Titans scored. Tanner Boyd lined up to kick a goal, and like they were booing. Yeah, there was like a boo going around the stadium.
Oh, come on, Gold Coast.
What's happening?
What's doing
but
there?
They might turn up in force. Hopefully they turn up in numbers, the Titans fans, this week, because this is a big game. Huge game for them. As I said, they are one of the sides that are mathematically still in with a chance.
Could you imagine?
Oh, mate, incredible. Imagine has there ever been a side, this might be one for Tommy, has there ever been a side, Tom, that has sacked their coach mid-season and gone on to play finals footy? Has that ever happened? Because when you're thinking of coaches being sacked mid-season, you're thinking sides that are just struggling to win games.
2018, when the Panthers sacked Anthony Griffin.
Oh, mate, they were top 4.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, they just limped in, didn't they? Yeah, they were 4, and then they.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, technically, yeah. No, I'll give you that.
It's very rare. It's very.
They sacked
rare.
him, and they were sitting in the top 4, weren't they?
Yeah. I actually think there probably will be more Warriors fans because there's a lot of Kiwis on the Gold Coast. There's a lot of Kiwis on the Goldie. Look, I think that the Warriors, if I'm the Warriors coach, I'm saying, boys, look what North Queensland happened to them last week.
Yes. Yep.
Don't be rolling in here thinking that it's just going to be easy because this is not the Titans of yesteryear. This is the Titans that, okay, every now and then they might have one of those poor performances.
Yep.
But more often than not, at least this season, they've been really gritty in my opinion.
Yeah. And mate, like if you're Warriors as well, sitting top 4, you're thinking, hey, like we've just come off a week off, we're fresh. Let's now build for the remaining games of our season into this finals, and let's maintain our top 4 spot. Like maintain that top. Imagine being in the Warriors team finishing top 4, Kempy. You're guaranteed a home final.
Mount Smart.
A home final, mate. Whether that be week 2 or a prelim.
Yeah.
Incredible, mate. Oh, it's
And-
huge.
Oh, it's massive because you go, all we need is, like, let's say you finished top 4. You're basically, you just need 80 minutes of great football at home. And then all of a sudden, you only need, it becomes a much easier task than going away and having to, like, battle through, the tough period of the finals footy. Like, if you get that first finals or whether it's the second finals.
Yep.
Look at the Cowboys versus the Eels. Now, I know the Eels just pipped them at the end, but geez, that was an advantage last year to have the Eels go up to the Cowboys home ground.
Yeah. Oh, huge, mate. Like, there's no doubt that playing in front of your home crowd is a positive. It's a bonus every time you do it, but let alone a huge match like that. And I can only imagine, as I said, a week 2 final or a prelim in week 3 of the finals at home, sold out Mount Smart. That would be going off its head.
Now, our SEN League same game multi, Warriors 1-12, Charles Nickel-Klukstad and Dave Fafita, anytime try scorers, over total match points plus 46.5. Total is 28-25. That's our SEN League same game multi. We'll continue our round preview after the break. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Let's dive straight into it. Panthers v Storm. Smithy, huge game. How do you see this one playing?
Big one. Possibly the biggest one. Well, maybe equal with the next game, Cowboys v Broncos, but this is the proper clash of the heavyweights, isn't it?
Ooh.
Panthers, they did what they had to do last week, 24 blot. And I guess the biggest takeaway of that is the 0 against the Sharkies scoreboard, it just shows why they are the best defensive team in the comp. Like they are just so hard to score against. If you want to score some points against Penrith, you're going to have to come up with a pretty good game plan, and then you have to go and execute that game plan to try and pull apart their defensive line. The Storm, big winners in the end. I was really pleased to see the form of Jerome Hughes.
Ooh.
I think he's been a little bit quiet by his own standards this year, but certainly the way he performed the other night against Parramatta. Now, I know Parramatta aren't playing at their best, and they got a couple of big guns out, but he played with a lot of energy. He played aggressively, and he ran the football, Kempy. That's a really important ingredient of not just all the halves in the game. You don't just you need your sevens running the football, but particularly for Jerome Hughes, that's his weapon.
Yeah,
that's his weapon. When he's taking the line on, using that big right foot, splitting defenses, he's a wonderful ball carrier. I think that then it sort of trickles into the rest of his game, so it makes him see the game better. He has a much stronger kicking game. His defense then is up to scratch. And, of course, Munster played strongly. I thought Harry Grant played a great game as well. And all the other troops followed. What does that mean for this game, though? Looking back, these guys only played each other, a month ago? If that? Was it 3-4 weeks ago? And it was played at Marvel. And so I was working down at that game, and the Storm just exploded out of the blocks. It was 14-0 after about 12 minutes or 15 minutes. But after that, the Panthers just said, righto, here we go. They just put it back into cruise control. Let's get our game done. No one's panicking. And they put on 34 points, I think it was. And I think the only points that came the Storm's way after that 20-minute mark was a penalty goal to Nick Meaney. So it was like in the final 60 minutes of the match, it was 34-2. And now this game is moved onto Penrith territory. As I want the Storm to win. I want them to play well, but I just think if we can't take care of Penrith in Melbourne, it's only going to be a tougher ask in Penrith. So, yeah, I think Penrith might win this one.
Yeah, just on the Hughes performance, I think that because he was a fullback, and I do feel like a lot of fullbacks that transition into the halves sometimes struggle with, they come in and they keep that fullback running game initially, and then they get a bit too sidetracked with because they're constantly told, we need to work on a ball playing. Yeah, setting up. And they kind of get distracted by it to a degree and forget what is the best part of their game, which is their running game. And I think Hughes, it looked like on the weekend, he basically said, you know what, I'm just going to play the way I instinctually play rather than being a structured 7 that everyone keeps talking about.
Well, he's never been that, mate.
Yeah.
He's never been that. And when he's played his best football, he's had high involvements with his running game. You look back at any of the those successful periods for the Melbourne Storm. It's been off the back of Jerome Hughes running the football. Like he finishes the game with 12 plus carries. When your half's taking the ball into the line and being tackled 12 times, like you look at Nathan Cleary, right? Before he was injured, before he did that hamstring, it was something like 3 or 4 consecutive games. This was leading into Origin, right? So he's just gearing himself up, getting himself ready. He had like 3 or 4 games where he had 20 plus runs.
Crazy.
20 plus runs. So that's when your key playmaker is asking questions of the defense that many times, like he's playing well and your team's playing well.
And it's a really interesting stat to look at because you look at the Storm, you look at the Panthers, you even look at Broncos with Ezra Mam and Reece Walsh to a degree, and then you look at the bottom tier teams. A lot of them don't run the ball, the halves. Like they don't have a 6 or a 7 that, for example, I hate to speak about the Roosters, but you've seen their 6 and 7 this year. They just really don't run the ball that much. And I think in this new era of rugby league, you need your 6s and 7s to be able to get a quick play of the ball and break the line themselves because it's just such a fast pace of rugby league.
Yeah. The interesting matchup, I think, is the news of, will Zach Hosking, do you think he'll play in the centres? Like, he's been named there. Like, will he play there?
Yeah, look, it's going to be, because Olam's back. I would have loved to see a Tungor-Olam battle, but, I mean...
Well, he's named in the reserves, isn't he, Tungor?
Yeah.
And could play, but...
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Like, because Zach, he's a back rower.
Yeah, and also Penrith have some really good young... like gun. I reckon if they were playing anyone other than Storm, they'd probably bring in and debut a young gun centre.
Yeah.
But if Hoskins is in centre, geez, it's going to be a good matchup with Olam.
Yeah. I just don't know. Like that would be a target area for Melbourne, I believe.
Olam's not back inside. Tonamapai, didn't he do his hammy last week? Oh, he's good.
Yeah, he's good to go. Yeah.
Oh, I
and
thought
Marion
he did his hammy last
Seve.
week.
Yeah, Seve's there as well. But those guys are genuine outside backs.
Oh, okay.
And they've got a little bit of speed. They're not the fastest centres in the competition, but they've got a little bit of speed. But maybe Hosking, he's played a bit of centre. I don't know.
Yeah.
But all first grade games I've seen him play, maybe our listeners know a little bit more, but every first grade game I've seen Zach Hosking play, it's been in the forwards and in the back row.
Yeah, mate, if he does play well at centre, geez, his value is going to go through the roof because he'd be on probably not that much at the moment, Hoskins, but he's been outstanding for him. Now let's get to the next game: Cowboys versus Broncos. How do you see this playing out, Smithy?
Well, it would have been a little bit harder, I think, coming off a Cowboys win, but they were well below their best last week. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anyone would deny that fact. The Broncos, though, flying. I think the Broncos, they are playing with, well, they're loving their footy at the moment, right? They're enjoying it. They're laughing. They're carrying on. They're having good fun on the footy field. But I tell you what they're doing. They're backing it up with like their actions on the field as well. They're looking so strong with the football. Everyone knows their job. They're running the right lines. They look powerful. Like the other night, like we spoke about the Roosters, they took it to them with the first 15. But after that, like some of the carries that we've seen from their players, and I'm not just talking about, the same old names in, the big blokes in the middle, but like Katoni Staggs, Herbie Farnworth, Selwyn Cobbo, like all of these guys, they are giants. And they're all fit. They all look healthy. They look energetic. And they're just playing with so much positive energy. And then off the back of that, Kempy, when they're not running over people or making themselves real hard to tackle, they're backing it up with a brick wall-like defence.
Yeah.
They're so hard to break as well. So they're a couple of really important ingredients to a successful footy side. I think they'll be really looking forward to this one. I think, speaking about Kevy, earlier about, getting this team up and getting the town all hyped up about the Broncos. I reckon he'll be stirring these players up too about this sort of Queensland derby and going up to Townsville and sort of being the party poopers.
Oh, mate, Cowboys versus Broncos, it's almost like a guaranteed golden point game. It's just, the last 10 years or so, it's just like, remember Milford and Thurston battles?
Yeah.
And, so I think it's going to be a cracking match. The Broncos, they just can't get caught up in the hype. They got the seam. They've proven themselves this year. It's all there. The ingredients are there. The one thing a young team struggles with usually is the hype. Now, Penrith Panthers obviously bucked that trend, but the exception doesn't prove the rule. So Broncos have just got to find a way to go, guys, we're not there yet. We haven't done anything done something. It's been a great year.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if we don't, go deep into the finals, it will just be forgotten as a year that could have been.
Yeah. How do they go about that? Like, so when you were a young fella and, you played in some very good Broncos sides, who would be the guys in charge? Was it the coaches? Was it the senior players? Like, who was it that kept you level-headed?
It was a mixture of both. Wayne Bennett was really good. I remember we were going on a run in 2008, and basically, I was still playing good footy, but there were just like one or two things where I either hesitated or, took not necessarily the wrong option, but I just didn't execute the way I was executing a few games before. And Wayne Bennett called me into his office and he just said, mate, I don't want you to pick up another newspaper for the next 4 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. And so it wasn't like I was sitting there reading about myself all the time, but it just put me, on notice to go, take a step back, Denan, recenter yourself and just go back to what you've done well. And that's what I think Kevy's got to strike that balance between celebrating these big wins for sure, but in a really subtle way, reminding the boys like nothing's been achieved yet.
Yeah.
Really hasn't. All of this can just be nothing. It can be a nothing year. And I think that's a mixture. And I think Renault will be really good at that because he's been so experienced in finals footy for so long. But it's a tightrope act because you don't want to be, a Debbie Downer every week on Monday. And, some coaches they go, oh, I'm just going to blow up at them to keep, them honest. And then players are like, are you serious? Like, we won big. Like, I want to enjoy me footy.
Yep.
A real tightrope. In regards to the Cowboys, it is such an important game because if they go in and get, beaten substantially by the Broncos, their confidence, I reckon, will just take a massive hit because it'll say to them, oh, we aren't on that level yet.
Yes.
So it's really important that maybe if they don't win, even though I think they can, if they don't win, it's really important they put on a good showing for themselves because if you go down to Titans, lose to Titans, and then get beaten well by the Broncos, confidence can be a real fickle thing.
Mate, coming off last week and just quickly, like if being comfortable was an issue, or complacency was an issue, it can't be this week. It just cannot be. Like, you're playing against a team coming second. You're playing against a side that a lot of people are saying are premiership threats to the competition. So I'd like to think that they're going into this game, knowing that they have to be at their very best. And the energy needs to improve from what they did last week. So I'm sure there'll be a better showing from the Cowboys. I just think that the form of the Broncos at the moment might be a bit too strong for them.
I'm thinking a tight one, Smithy. I'm thinking a really tight match, and I'm thinking game of the round. After the break, we're going to continue our round preview. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Let's get straight into it. Dolphins v. the Knights. And, geez, haven't the Knights turned into almost a story for the ages if they could fight their way into the eight? It's just been so exciting to watch them almost, turn back the clock. They look like a Steel City Knights side at the moment. How do you see this one playing out, Smithy?
Yeah, no changes, mate. No changes. They're playing some great footy, so no reason for Adam O'Brien to bring anyone new or mix up the footy side. The same can't be said for the Dolphins, though. They got a few changes in their footy team. This is over in Perth. This is a doubleheader, first of two games over at Optus Stadium in Perth. This is 5:30 Saturday. I think Newey continues winning.
Yeah,
I think they've hit a bit of a wall, the Dolphins. I thought they were a good chance on the weekend playing in Bundy, but they just, going down to the Doggies, who they clawed and scrapped for a tight victory in the end. But yeah, there's just something about Newey. They're on a bit of a roll at the moment, and particularly KP, like he's just playing some great footy. Yeah, we've said on the show, look, he looks happy, he looks settled now, back playing fullback. He's enjoying his football, which is a big thing for him. Being that type of guy, like when he's settled and got everything, in the right area, mentally, and he's feeling good and feeling, positive about the way that he's playing. He's really hard to stop. So I've got the Knights chalking up another victory.
Yeah, I really like what the Knights have done this year. Everything that's gone against them, and even guys like we had a text earlier, Fitzgibbon. Here's a text. Dear Cameron and Denan, how is Lachlan Fitzgibbon ending up going to Super League? He was way too good for a team in NRL not to pick him up. What happened here? It's such a good, and that aside, I agree with you. He's really hit his career best form, but he's a really good example of, he's been solid for a while, but this year they've got multiple players playing, arguably their best. Tyson Frizzell, Tyson Gamble, Hastings been outstanding, Ponga, Lachlan Fitzgibbon. And I think Adam O'Brien deserves a lot of credit for that. I know it's been a rough year and he was under a lot of pressure, but I think we're finally starting to see a turning point for the Newcastle Knights. Now, I may be regretting my words, but I just think that they've played with so much grit. And you go back to the game on the weekend against the Raiders. What I loved the most about it was the 79th minute, the game is over. It's won. They've dominated the Raiders. The Knights were pulling off try-saving tackles in the 79th minute. And that tells me these guys are committed to principles regardless of results. And that is a good footy side.
Yeah, it's always a good sign, mate, isn't it? A really good sign because it shows that it means something to them. Where many people would say, oh, look, he didn't have to make that tackle. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't change the result. Well, it does matter because what that means is like they're wanting to create good habits. Because if you're okay with letting that go, what's going to happen when you're behind on the scoreboard and it's actually you're in a tougher game and you've made more tackles and you're feeling a little bit more tired, you've done more running and all this sort of stuff. Are you still going to be able to go and make that tackle? It's all training yourself to create that good habit so it happens naturally. You know what I mean? So make the play when you don't need to do it, because when you do need to do it, it happens automatically for you. So, like I said, there's a lot of good signs with Newcastle at the moment. Maybe they have now just gone, now, like, we get it. We understand what Adam O'Brien's been trying to build here. We believe in it. Belief in a game plan and belief in a coach can do some wonderful things.
Yeah.
Like for sporting, not just footy sides, like any sporting team. When everyone is on the same page and they believe in what they're doing, it can make a huge difference. And it just looks like they're doing that at the moment. If they're fair dinkum, Kempy, like they should be travelling over to the West thinking, this is a game we will win.
Yeah.
That should be the mindset for the Knights this week.
I agree, mate. I agree. Now, Rabbitohs v. the Sharks. How do you see this? What an important game for both teams.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. If Sharkies lose, I reckon they're out of the 8 this weekend.
Don't say it, Smithy. That's heartbreaking, mate.
Well, I'm just trying to be honest, Kempy.
Oh,
I don't like to muck around with our listeners.
Mate, I live in the Shire. Someone's going to hurt me now.
You're going to have to move. You're gonna have to. It shouldn't be hard. Just sell that big 8-bedroom mansion you've bought on the bloody. What is it on the Esplanade or where is it?
Give me a break, mate.
They reckon it's bigger than Paul Gallen's house.
Oh, give me a break. I'm just a butler in a small unit, mate. Tiny unit. I don't even have a car park. I park 2 k's down the road and run home, mate.
Oh, is that when all the locals see the guns out
I was
when
running
you're running
home, mate. I was running home.
Right. Okay. No, but mate, no. Listen. In all honesty, I think they're gone, mate. Like if they don't win, they're gone. They're out of the 8 this week. Because I think. Well, I've said I think Manly and Newcastle will win. Yeah. So if that's the case, and the Sharks get beat by the Rabbits, then they're gone. Both teams will jump them this weekend. It's a big fall, isn't it? When they were going so well.
It's like Craig Fitzgibbon is really getting a dose of, it's not all sunshine and roses. He comes in, kills it. Yeah. And Fitzy, he's been working his backside off.
Yep.
And just no matter what he tries and what he does, it just doesn't seem to be clicking at the end of the year. And because all of his decisions he's made, they make sense. I probably would have made the same decisions. And yet it just doesn't seem to be clicking for him. Everything that, like, for example, their star player goes away to Origin and all of that happened, and it's almost like if you're Fitzy, you're sitting back going, oh, God, like I'm glad he got his Origin debut, but was that best for his season at the moment for the Sharkies? I'm not sure. And mate, I feel for Fitzy, I really do. I think it's
mate, they haven't got a great record either. The Sharkies against the Rabbits, I think it's 1 from their last 5 that they've won as well. So not a great sort of matchup for them in the best of times. And of course, they've lost their fullback for the rest of the season, Will Kennedy. So there's a change there as well. Late season change. I don't know how that affects their attack. And yeah, I just think that Rabbitohs, another week for Latrell, back in the side, feeling better, feeling fitter than what he was last week. Everyone around him feeling a little bit more comfortable with his presence. I think the Rabbitohs get this one.
Alrighty, we're going to head to a break, and after the break, we're getting to Eels, Dragons, and Raiders, Tigers. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. Let's get into it. Eels v. the Dragons. Dylan Brown returns at 5'8" for his first game since round 13. Lemu comes onto the wing. Ofo-Ngawe, Madison, Lussick have all been named to start. Whittamoo Greg also returns from a foot injury for the Dragons. DeBellin out suspended. His replacement yet to be named. No other changes.
Yeah, big out Jackie DeBellin with that hip drop charge. I'm thinking Eels. Just return of Dylan Brown, I think, makes a huge difference to this footy side. You could see the absence of Brown over the last little bit. And listening to Brad Arthur speak last week about his potential return this week, he spoke about that he looks great at training. He's fit. He's rock hard fit. He's raring to go. And that, his mindset should be about repaying his teammates. Yeah. And he said it, sort of just. It wasn't just a little sneaky remark. I think it might have been sending a little message back to Dylan Brown as well, just to say, mate, look, what's happened this year, and it's caused us a little bit of grief. So you need to repay all of your teammates and your fans now with some strong performances to finish the year. So, I think Eels too strong.
The Eels are desperate for a win here. Like, this is season defining because if they don't beat the Dragons, they're going up to play the Broncos next Friday, which will be obviously a tough travel. So I think the Eels, and if they don't win well, I'll be a bit concerned for them, to be honest. They're facing the Dragons, that second at the bottom of the ladder. Mm-hmm. They don't have DeBellin. The Eels obviously have their starting spine back together. Hands obviously has to replace Hodgson midway through the year.
Yep.
It is really, this is their season right now.
Yeah, well,
there is no other way to describe it.
Yeah, well, mate, they've got 4 games left of the season. They finish, I think it's their last round is a bye. So, they've got 4 games. And it's got to be, the best 4 games that they've got in them to finish this season, to have any chance of finishing in this top 8. They're still there. You can't just put a line through them yet because they're on 24 points. They're only a game outside of the 8, Kempy.
Yeah.
They're only a win outside of the 8. So you can't say they're gone as yet, but with every loss, it just makes it that much harder. And again, this is a game. There's certain games you look at during the year where it's a matchup, and this half contradicts a little bit what we've been talking about being a tight season. But I truly believe this is a game that Parramatta should be thinking we have to win this.
Mm. Yeah.
They really need to go out and have that attitude to say, we're winning. We're winning this game. We're beating St. George. We're at home. We've got one of our key players back. We need to win it.
And I'd almost be heading into this week for the Eels, and I'd be saying our finals start this week. Finals footy for us.
Yeah. Well, it's on now.
This week.
Yeah, you're right, mate.
Yeah.
It's do or die for them, isn't it?
100%. You got Knights and Manly playing good footy. You got Knights and Manly are playing better footy than the Eels right now. So it's not like it says you're 1 win outside the 8, but you've got 2 guys ahead of you by 1 point because of that bizarre draw. So it's actually worked against you, even though they've got good differential. Because they drew that game, it's actually hurt them that they drew that game. So, yeah, the Eels, they've got to get it. In regards to the Dragons, I mean, what a... look, I really appreciate... I thought they actually showed a lot of fight last week, but what a disaster year.
The last week, they just didn't have the class, did they?
Yeah.
To take it to Manly. And they've got a lot of good players. And their skipper, as I said, playing their 300th, they had a lot to play for, and he's playing some of the best football that he's ever played. But yeah, it's been a very, very rough season for the Dragons. I'm sure they're all looking forward to getting this season done and dusted, getting the new coach in and starting from scratch.
Now, let's get to the next game. Raiders versus the Tigers. Now, I don't think it's alarm bells yet for the Raiders, but I do think there'd be some nervous collar grabbing going, oh, geez, they're sitting 28 points. You know, you've got 6, 7, and 8 on 26. So they're pretty comfortable, But, I mean, this is an absolute, no question, must win for them, because then if they lose this game, they make the end of their season an absolute nightmare it doesn't have to be.
Well, they follow this one up with a game against the Storm. So, and that's down in Melbourne. So they want to get themselves ready. They want to be playing, treat this game like they're playing the Storm.
Yeah.
Simple. Like, don't just think, it's the West Tigers. They're running last, blah, blah. Mate, I'll tell you what the Tigers will be doing. They'll be out to take a few scalps.
Absolutely.
They'll be out to take a few scalps. I know I would be if I was in their position. I'll be thinking, hey, listen, we're not playing finals. Let's cause some grief.
Yeah,
for anyone we're playing. It doesn't matter. I don't care where they're sitting on the ladder. Well, particularly those ones up in finals contention. Let's just cause some grief. So they're going to... Yeah, sorry, mate, go.
I was going to say, I've picked them for an upset.
Have you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I thought they were good last week. I thought a few calls and a few errors. I actually picked them for an upset. I think the Raiders, they had the last 5 minutes against the Warriors really saved them from getting absolutely demolished.
Yeah.
Then they got completely dominated by the Knights. Like, they're in a bit of a tough spot right now, the Raiders.
Bit of Barney?
I think that they'll still probably squeeze in the 8, but they've got to find some form. They are not the team they were 4 to 5 weeks ago, and I think they look a little bit tired, if I'm being honest. It's been such a gritty and grindy year, and it's been such a great year. Don't get me wrong, it's been a great year for the Raiders. But the problem is like Manly and Knights are like starting to hit a bit of, especially the Knights, they're hitting a bit of form.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the team that's like looking over your shoulder and having to win the last 2 games and things going your way. So, huge game for the Raiders. Huge game for the Raiders.
Yeah, big one, mate. They got, as I said, like they've got Melbourne next. After that, they're playing the Doggies. Doggies in a similar situation to West Tigers. They just want to cause some carnage.
Yeah.
But then they got Broncos in the second last round. Then the Sharkies, which the Sharkies could be playing for their season. So, huge finish for the Raiders.